we're supposed to say, welcome to the podcast. This is Jonathan Sanger,
good to be here again.
Producer. I'm Daniel Brea, trying to learn as much as I can. And today is another David Lynch.
I don't know. We can talk about David, sure.
I watched the episode. I started watching your Twin Peaks episode that you directed, and I didn't get quite through it because you came 15 minutes early, which I like actually, but I couldn't finish. And you said that the ending was interesting because David himself was in it. Now this is
David plays the character Gordon Cole. He was in the series in other episodes too. Gordon Cole
I
is.
just blocked my
Oh, there you go.
Okay, take it back. So David plays
this character called Gordon Cole. Gordon Cole is the boss of the character that Kyle MacLachlan plays.
the guy who falls in love with Heather Graham.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle MacLachlan is an FBI agent, and Gordon Cole is the bureau chief.
Okay.
And he comes occasionally, and he sees Kyle, or he has meetings with him, stuff like that. So. In this particular scene, David and Gordon Cole, the character, is meeting with Kyle MacLachlan's character in the diner, and he's sitting next to the character played by Maid Shinamick, who is was a waitress basically there, and Cole kind of declares his feelings for her. Which is totally bizarre. This older guy and this young woman. And her boyfriend walks in. Her boyfriend, who is played by Dana Ashbrook, and she is about to run for Miss Twin Peaks,
Yeah.
and that's set up in the early part of the episode. And Gordon leans over and kisses her just as this guy walks in, and he goes like, "My God, what's going on?" And David has a very funny line. He says, "What am I seeing?" The guy says, "What am I seeing?" He said, and the Gordon Cole character says, "You're seeing I forget how he puts it. He says the right profile of my right profile."
He
kissing.
facts.
And he states all the facts.
Right.
And he says, and not only that, and you've seen me kissing her, and you're going to see me kissing her again. It's very strange, a little odd, but fun.
That's that show. That's also David Lynch, and this episode you directed actually, which is episode 19 of season
19?
2.
Oh, it was 19.
Season
Okay.
2, 19 for
Kind
those
of
who wanna
towards
watch
the
it.
end of the end of the run. Unfortunately, because the show was getting was petering out a bit and getting a little complicated in terms of the story. Of course, we as directors had nothing to do with the writing of it.
So let's actually jump into that a little bit, because there's two things that I think we can cover. One, like Twin Peaks, a David Lynch vision, but obviously not a very traditional show, especially not at the time. Mm-hmm. And I think it was ABC. Was it Iger that approved it for ABC?
Could have been. I'm not. I can't tell you for sure because I had nothing to do with the network.
Yeah, but, I think that's what it was, but I might be wrong. But then
But it became, it became a real cultural icon. And the fact is, the show itself probably had more to do with trends that happened later in television, because there was nothing like it. There was nothing at all like it. And shows like Stranger Things and all these other shows were all possible because this was the groundbreaking show.
What would you call this kind of a show? I mean, if you had a...
I don't know. It's interesting because in a way it's like a heightened soap opera in a way. It's kind of... it has all the characteristics of a soap opera in the town.
The dialogue's almost kind of... If it wouldn't have been executed by great actors, it would almost be cheesy in some ways.
It is somewhat cheesy, but in
an artistic
way? In a very Lynchian way. It's very David Lynch. If you listen to David speaking, the characters sound the way David sounded. So all of them have a little bit of David's gee whiz kind of a characteristic in terms of the way they talk.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a funny thing when you think of, you think of a show like Happy Days. Happy Days was a period in time in the 50s, I guess, or whenever it was supposed to be, and the whole idea. And of course, it was, it was a family, it was kids, it was all that kind of stuff. Twin Peaks, in a way, was a mystery set within this kind of idealistic, crazy community.
Now, this community, by the way, there is a Twin Peaks on the way up to Arrowhead. And I frequent it. I like it. Like, Gregory's there, and you can rent log cabins.
Okay.
It's a great place to go. Is it that Twin Peaks?
Actually was. It was there's a town in the state of Washington called Snoqualmie.
Okay.
And at the very beginning of the episode, of every episode, in fact, you see the falls. Those are Snoqualmie Falls, and the inn was at the top of the falls. The diner was.
So this wasn't.
It was all done on a real location initially. No, that was the movie. Twin Peaks. There was a film, Twin Peaks, which was set in the real location, and they shot a lot in the real place. When they did the series, they recreated a lot of those places, but they still used the opening, which was all shot up in the state of Washington. Around, there are lumber mills up there. There are, all of the kind of things that are the basic background of the story.
How I actually realized watching your episode that I thought I had watched the show, and I didn't. I'm watching this, and I'm like, oh no, this is completely foreign. I have never seen this. But I guess I've spoken about it so much that over the years,
you almost felt like you had
somehow. Seen it. It's been out since the '90s, so I just
it's hard. It's hard to explain because my oldest son was a huge Twin Peaks fanatic. He was in college, and every week he had to see the show. And in fact, when I got the opportunity to direct it, I hadn't seen that many episodes. And my son David, you met David. David wrote me. I said, David, tell me a little bit about the show. I got to do this thing, and I don't know the history of the story. And he literally wrote me a cheat sheet, which had all of the information about all of the characters and telling me everything that he knew up to the date, in fact, that I came into it. But it was fascinating because it was,
what was the basic idea when David pitched the show? What's the storyline?
Well, the storyline is Laura Palmer, who is this woman. You're talking about a kind of as I said, a kind of a sitcom town, a place that exists more in your imagination than in the real world, but a real place. There's a potentially a murder that has happened. A woman is dead. They find a woman in the water and covered in plastic, and that's Laura Palmer. And everything kind of radiates out from that finding. Who did it?
Why did it happen?
Why did it happen? Yeah. What is it about this town? And then it goes into the mythology of the town, the history of the Black Lodge and the White Lodge, and all of these other
these cave paintings.
You have the Wyndham Earle character, who was apparently an FBI man with the Kyle MacLachlan character, who then kind of went on the dark side and became a murderer and a kind of a mastermind killer. And you find a little bit more about him, but it's not particular. It's not like a straight off crime thriller. It's not that at all. In fact, and you get to see all of the people who live in it. The woman Josie, who runs the mill. The bigwigs in the town who basically run things and own things.
And then there's the waiters at the bar, at the
waiters, the young guy, the young people. It kind of puts together the whole world.
It's about the community, just creating a kind of a world for your.
It's about that. It's about that community, but everything is taken a step beyond reality.
It looks like, from what I could tell on a digital screen, it was either 35 or 16 millimeter film, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you were shooting film.
We were shooting film. Yeah, it was film.
Yeah. And,
But again, I mean, we were shooting film because digital media hadn't really taken over
not
yet.
at that, but some TV was being, or
Yeah.
maybe it was just a
but mainly
sports and stuff. Or
story television was basically
still
still being done on film,
interesting.
and you'd shoot film.
So, what was it like? The other thing I think to kind of talk about a little bit is that directing a film and directing a television episode are a little bit different. And I don't think
one of the big
always
differences.
known.
No, well, one of the big differences when you come in to direct an episode of television in general is that you're coming into a situation, and we've talked about this, but you're coming into a situation with characters that are already defined. You're not going to tell them who their characters are. They know who their characters are. They came in that way. Mm-hmm. You're just a day player as a director. You come in and you're supposed to learn the language of the show so that you know, I mean the visual language particularly, so that if the show is done on Steadicams, for example, you're going to shoot it on Steadicams. You're not going to shoot it on a dolly, and I mean, it's just that's the way it's going to be.
Do you have any input as creatively?
You have creative input in the blocking of the show, but you still have to do it within the constraints of the style of the show. You're not going to change the style of the show.
Now, who's there to keep you in check while you're in production?
Well, you have to remember the cameraman has been there before. He's been running.
Right, but he can't come to the director and be like, "Don't direct the actors that way."
No. He had nothing to do with that.
Who would have been that person?
Usually it would be one of the writers.
Yeah.
It wouldn't necessarily be David, because David was the eminence grise, the overall mind behind the show and behind the style of the show and all of that, and he directed the pilot episode and a lot of the episodes. But when you got down to doing an individual episode, you were given other episodes to watch, so you got a sense of what the style was. You got to speak to your cameraman and your designer and all the other people about what existed, so that the designs for the sets and stuff like that, the sets were all built. You weren't designing them.
But were you able to say, hey, you know what'd be funny if we change this here and do this? Or is it more like you're just there to execute this?
Well, you're there to execute it. I mean, in the case of Twin Peaks, and in the case of, I think, any show that was designed by a director as opposed to designed by a writer, and Twin Peaks was both. I mean, David and Mark Frost were the writers. They created the show, but David also directed the show a lot, and he basically designed the look of the show.
Right.
In most other episodic television series, the writers created the show, but they weren't necessarily directors, and the directors would come in
to work with actors,
and do all of that. Well, the one thing that Twin Peaks had, which was unusual for a typical television show, was that the director had a little bit more latitude. You could come in and you could, the style of the show allowed for the director to actually have a little more fun with it, instead of just doing, dialogue. You could actually find.
It's not a police drama. It's just here's the format.
Yeah. Well, and most many television shows are just talking heads.
Yeah.
Twin Peaks, you wanted to see the sets. You wanted to see the background. You wanted to. I mean,
it feels much like a film.
Yeah, it looks like a film, and some of it, for example, the lake and the boat and the caves were all real locations. Mm-hmm. Those were not on stage. Mm-hmm. So you'd go out, you'd shoot a few days on the real locations, and you'd shoot the rest in. I mean, the diner was a set. The lodge was a set. Certain things were sets.
You're also under a lot of pressure for scheduling and all that.
Well, yes, but you're dealing with actors who are very comfortable with these characters.
Right.
And, so Ian Buchanan is one of the characters who plays the guy who is, he does the wine tasting in the show. The guy with the nose and in the show. And he is, again, he's a caricature of that guy.
He has kind of a funny scene where the wine tasting begins and his idiot underling takes a sip and he's like, "No, spit it out."
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, everything was done for the effect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's meant to be humorous, but it's also
It's a dark comedy. Yeah.
It isn't meant to
Lynchian.
be reality. It's extended reality.
There are dramatic, serious things that happen, but he executes it in a way that very honestly, I don't like going to so very few filmmakers, but in this case, it's true. There's only a handful of guys on the creative level who can package projects in a way where everything fits. The casting, the characters fit the writing, and the actors fit the characters, and the world around them really fits. So I can think of like a Wes Anderson, David Lynch,
Yes.
and
Wes Anderson's a good example of someone who does that.
the Edward Scissorhands.
Oh yes,
Tim Burton.
Tim Burton, sure.
Those are the only three I can think of that have that magical combination of these eccentric characters.
Well, it's a good point because you've got eccentric characters and a reality that is enlarged and changed.
Tarantino
somewhat.
does it in a violent way, but
Yeah.
it's not the same.
It's violent, but there's
dreamy,
a reality
right.
to it that is somewhat different. I think, although I mean, Tarantino definitely has a style.
Yeah.
We talked about him because he's
Right.
and in his last, he did a whole run of revenge movies, and
Right.
those were, each one had a style, and the whole idea of them was turning revenge upside down. I mean, the idea of getting revenge for real events that happened in a way that didn't happen
Breaking
in real life.
realism that way.
Yeah.
We know
That
Hitler
was a
didn't
different
get
level.
killed. Yeah.
It was a different way to do it. I mean, Twin Peaks doesn't pretend that these characters really existed. It's
Right.
not people in real
Right.
life, but it's trying to put you into a mythology that's created around the
And
characters.
there's a familiarity to it in a way because it's an interesting combination of familiarity, like a fairy tale, but still situations that you could imagine would happen in the real world. But it's kind of, you have to see it in a way. If somebody would have never seen a Wes Anderson, a David Lynch, a Tim Burton
They
or
couldn't
movie,
describe it.
you can't describe it.
No, that's true. I mean, I think look, I directed an episode of Twin Peaks, but I also directed an episode of another show that David produced and David designed called On the Air. And it was about the early days of live television. And it was about putting together a television show for a network, the Zablotnik network, which David created, and it was, in a way, even more extreme in terms of the movement away from reality to some kind of hyper reality that David created. And I think, in a sense, Twin Peaks was closer to a reality that an audience could grasp. On the Air was too far, was a little bit too far. The networks didn't understand it. They said, no, we can't. I think they never aired any of the episodes initially, and when they did air them, it was like just to put them out. They didn't know they didn't even know what it was. They didn't understand it. They didn't get it. It was nothing. But it was most of you, of the people who are listening to us probably never heard of the show. From the 40s, there was a movie called Hellzapoppin'. Hellzapoppin' was Olsen and Johnson. They were these guys, and they did a show, and everything was outrageously huge and bigger than life in every way. On the Air was very much like that. It was like taking reality and really amping it up in every possible way to make it totally absurd. So it was like crossing Ionesco with with David Mamet. I mean, you can't
Right.
doing something that is about real people and something that is totally absurd.
Totally interesting.
You know.
So that one took it a bit too far. Twin Peaks lasted, 2 seasons? Or
It
was
lasted 2 seasons, and one of the problems, basically around the time when I directed, was that they knew they weren't going to get picked up for another season. They just around that time found out, so they had to end everything kind of fast, so that a lot of the mystery in the backstory and all that happened had to be revealed, rather quickly if they were going to end the show at the end of the second season, which was not their original intent. I mean, the idea was this would go on, and the mystery would continue, and that there would be a little bit more of a thread that would continue. All of a sudden, having to make everything happen pretty quickly, kind of tweaked it.
In terms of the show format, it sounds like then there, obviously the body in the beginning was the catalyst to introduce the whole thing, but
Sure.
then, like, are there intermittent? Was season 1 an arc that concluded, or was it kind of open ended in every episode?
No, it was
to a degree?
open-ended. It was
So is every episode self contained in a way, or I mean, you brought up soap opera, so there are these kind of ongoing dramas that never conclude, and then there's
I think there was a lot of that. I mean, a lot of the drama, of course, whatever you want to call it, drama, melodrama, whatever, between the characters was something that would continue from episode to episode, so that the same, you had the same characters, everything was continuing, very much like any show, but it didn't have the need like to use an example, what was the show we were talking about? The 50s.
On the air, the Hundendux, Hoppenbops, the one that you said was
No. I'm talking about Ron Howard's show.
Happy
Days.
Happy Days.
Happy Days. Would have a story arc within the episode, and it would basically end by the end of the episode.
Yeah,
something would happen.
Johnny's pencil was lost.
That would conclude it, and Fonzie would save the day, and that would be the end of the episode. And then it would go on to something the next week. Fonzie came over to the house, and he's having dinner with the family, and whatever.
What you would call, I guess, a procedural situation.
Yeah. This, in Twin Peaks, it was a little bit different. There was no resolution. Most of the stories were continuing. You never knew when a bit of new information was going to come out about a character that you didn't know. So it was more of a story that ran from episode to episode without a distinct ending. I mean, you might have a piece, an arc within the story that ended. For example, the guy, the wine tasting could have been just one hunk of an episode and piece of an episode, and that didn't continue after the episode. That ended. But other things. I mean, the character still continued, and the things that they did continued. So it was intended to be a longer form story that was going to get resolved later.
And the writers were kind of thinking in maybe big chunks ahead.
Now think about it, because initially the story came out of, I would tend to suggest that the mind of David Lynch
from the movie,
and you had Mark Frost, who was his collaborator. I don't know much about Mark Frost's other work, but I would tend to guess that it is less anarchic in the way that David is, and that David brought a lot of the feel of the show to it. But you also had other writers. You had Harley Payton. You had other people who came in and wrote episodes, and it was incumbent upon them to get into David's mindset to be able to write somewhat in his style.
Right.
That had to be a very difficult thing to do.
Sure.
I mean, it's not, because you're not just continuing like you would on a miniseries or a series where the story is very linear and you can just take it and move it forward. You had to not only move the story forward, but make sure that the characters stayed consistent with the characters that David had created, and that took a lot of work. That was not easy, and didn't always succeed. Sometimes you'd say, "Oh well, someone's acting like David Lynch, but it's not really David. That's not David." That's somebody
Yeah.
else trying to be David, you know,
Yeah.
and that was always the challenge in a show like that when you have other writers coming in and other people coming in trying to create what the
Mimic an artist's
person
mind, yeah,
what the
or-
person did and not make it I mean the idea I think essentially is not to try to mimic him but try to get into his mindset and try to feel the way he would have done it. Not so easy to do. Not very easy to do at all. I would say.
Do you think you've directed and produced? Have you ever directed something that you produced?
Yeah, I did. I did produce. Down Came a Blackbird.
Oh, you produced that too. That's right.
So
we did
and I
one on
had
that,
developed
yeah.
it. You know, I mean, I didn't write it. I mean, I
Right.
found the script and I took the script
You made it happen.
and took it to was able to get it financed by Showtime. They put up the money for it, and worked with the writer all the way through, and had the opportunity to make changes or do things directorially that were not necessarily the way the script was written, but were true to the spirit of it.
Are you? If I told you right now, all right, you're greenlit on one of these three. Something you'll be invited to direct a TV show. You'll be invited to direct a movie. You'll be invited to direct and produce one of those two, or you'll be invited to just produce one of those two. Which one would you just pick?
Well, you know, that's an almost impossible question to answer because it really depends on what the material is.
Yeah.
It depends on what my inclination is, how close I am to the material. The way I see it, I never wanted to. I mean, if I was going to direct something that somebody brought to me, and I had the power to make the choice, I would probably want to do something that almost certainly want to do something that I was close to, that you know, that touched me in a particular way that I felt I had something to bring to it as a director.
Do you have a story that you think is unproducible business-wise, but you just would jump right on it if somebody did?
Well, there are those stories. I mean, there are stories that I don't know they're unproducible, but they're harder to produce. You know, I mean, right now, look, it's very clear that if I'm going out as a producer to produce a movie today, and I'm looking for financing, almost every financing source I go to wants either an action movie set in the present day or a thriller. Mm-hmm. Used to be for a while, horror films were very hot. Not quite so hot right now. They're a little oversaturated. Yeah. Comedies are probably more regional than they are international. Mm-hmm. So that if you're going to do something that's set in the U.S. for a U.S. market, comedies are a good bet. But if you're going to do something for the world market, comedies don't travel as well because people's comic sensibilities are different. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't have, I would venture to say that like Adam Sandler's movies do better in this country than they do in China. I wouldn't imagine his movies are going to travel that way, but they do so well in this country that it doesn't matter. He's made a fortune doing his kind of comedy, and he does that kind of thing over and over again. But if I'm trying to sell a movie and I'm not Adam Sandler, which I'm not, I'm going to have to find what is going to sell to the widest audience with the least amount of resistance. Okay, right now, period is resistance because it's going to be more expensive. Anything you do that's in period means that everything that you see on screen has to be created. It isn't real. If I'm looking out the window and I see cars, they have to be cars from that time period. They can't be present day. And if they are, if I don't want to have any cars on the street, okay, then I got to move all the cars that were there. So, I mean, there's a whole lot of work that goes into doing. I mean, that's just one very minor point. Costumes
and signs and
everything has to be changed. So, period is going to cost more, physically cost more, and I'm talking about all of the things other than the actors, which the actors are a variable. that you can't judge. I mean, some actors, Brad Pitt gets millions and millions of dollars. Somebody else plays the same role, gets hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars. I mean, it doesn't, there's no way to make that judgment. That's something else. But the actual physical making of it and all of those issues, in a period movie, it's going to cost more. So initially, the period story is going to be rejected until I can prove there's a good reason to do it. Then I'm looking at what are people going to want to go see, and most of the financiers are going to tell me, give me action. Action translates in all categories because it's not dialogue driven, and it works in every country. So give me an action movie or give me a thriller that has action in it. Those are the kinds of things that I can most easily sell.
And yet somehow you fight your way through 80% of your films being period pieces, most of them dramas.
Very, very hard.
The hardest thing you could possibly do, and yet you pull it off.
I've taken the hardest choice, and I understand it. But you see, I'm not making... I mean, if I'm looking at the audience to tell me what to make, then I'm in a different business than the business I want to be in. Look, it's the same thing. Take a look at David Lynch. David Lynch's career. If you look at his whole career and all of the movies that he made, and the box office for those movies, I guarantee you the box office was not great. David Lynch's his artistry influenced many, many people who made much more, who made movies that made much more money than the movies he made. But he made movies that were consistent.
He could have easily sold out, if you want to call it that.
He could have become he definitely could have made big action movies, and he could have jumped on and done a Star Wars movie that would have made billions.
We were talking about it last time. He wasn't just. This is not just about filmmaking for him. He was an artist tinkering. You were his neighbor.
And he was
building stuff in the backyard, sculpting and painting.
And his art was not only his art, but his control over his art. He was not interested in working at somebody else, with someone else telling him how to do it.
Just wanted to put his stuff.
If he could do it his own way, he was happy about it. When he couldn't do it his own way, which was Dune, for example, which had many Lynchian elements in it, but overall he didn't have control over the cut, and he didn't have control, so he disowned it at the end of the day. He almost took his name off it. He didn't, but he didn't like to talk about it. It was the least successful, personally, of all of the work he did. So, and he tended to do work that came out of his own mind.
Was he difficult? Like, I know you were a friend, so I'm not trying to have you throw shade or whatever, but I have great friends who I can honestly say sometimes they're kind of dicks when they're focused on something. I'm not trying to get you to say that he was, but was he difficult for other people because he was so focused on his art?
No, I don't think so. David had a unique ability to bring you as a partner into his vision in a way that was not coercive. He was never coercive. I never saw it that way. I just thought he was convincing. And he could convince you that if you were going to go with him, you should go with him all the way. Don't go with him if you want to put brakes on him. But if you were going to go with him, he would be financially responsible. He was never a guy who wanted to spend more money than he needed to. After Dune, once he saw the debacle of having made a movie that cost a ton of money that he lost control of, and wound up having other people make determinations about how that movie was going to end up, and it hurt him. It hurt him a lot, and so from that point on, he figured out.
You're talking about emotionally.
I'm talking about yes, but I'm saying he was somebody who said, "Well, from now on, I'm going to make the movies I want to make, and
even if
I'm willing to make them within the budgets that I have to make them in order to have control over them." If he had decided to make Baron von Munchausen and it was a $100 million movie, he would have lost control. So he didn't go in that direction.
Yeah.
He decided not to do that. He made the movies that he wanted to make, and he could make them for a budget that was reasonable. As a filmmaker, I would say he was as conscious of the financial costs of things of anybody I've ever worked with. I mean, he knew he was not. Put it in a better way, he was very knowledgeable about the medium. He understood. He learned about movies, and he learned what he could do with film.
I think that's important.
And by knowing all of that, he was able to keep the costs very
But that's
reasonable.
a good point that you're bringing up. If you're going to be the type of, I want to do it my way, artistic kind of director, filmmaker, then you better know what you're talking about at every stage. Because if you just go in and try and get funding for something and your head's in the clouds, you know, it's so easy for somebody to tell you you're out of your mind. This is a $80 million movie you're talking about. And then you can say, well, no, I have the thing built in my yard already. You know, stuff he...
But you see, that was who David was. David did his own art by himself in his own studio. He painted, he sculpted, he built furniture, and he did it. He knew how to do it. He knew how to use a lathe. He knew how to use all of the equipment that was necessary, because he had to learn it if he was going to do that thing, and he learned how to do it well. Same thing with film. He learned it. He understood it. He figured it out from at the very beginning, and so when he planned to do something, he had a plan. He knew how to do it. He really knew how to do it. He needed other technicians to help him. He needed other artists. But going back as far as The Elephant Man, which was really a very early film for David, think about it. I mean, there's a scene in there with a bunch of men, and they're supposedly in a workhouse moving. You know, there's equipment. He actually designed the equipment that they were moving. It didn't do anything, but it looked like this is the kind of work that people do in that situation. He knew how to do that. He built the instrument that the two writers wind up playing in one of the opening scenes. It was
not a real instrument.
No, it's just a bellows and an odd thing. But he figured that out. He created it. He told the designer, and the designer made it. You know, basically to his specifications. So he knew how to do a lot of things.
You ever just wake up, or just sit there while you're drinking coffee and think, it's kind of cool that you gave David Lynch his major shot? Or
look, I'm thrilled about it, but I'm equally as thrilled by the fact that I got to meet somebody in the formative stages of his career, and I recognized that he was a singular talent. I knew, that much I did know. I couldn't tell you whether he would be very successful at it or not, but I knew that there was something very special about his talent. And I can't say that I always know that, but I am always looking for that. And I've met other people in my own career where I looked at them and said, this is somebody who hasn't, the thing about David was that when he started out, you might have thought he was just a precocious film student, and he was just stretching the limits because he wanted to see what that was. But there was something about David that was very consistent from project to project, even though they were totally different. And once you saw what that was, you realized this guy has a plan in his head. He may not even know what the plan is. It comes from him. There's something that's driving him. But there's something that is driving him. Even when he did a movie like, and the only two narrative movies David really made, narrative in the sense that they were typical storytelling stories, were Elephant Man and The Straight Story. The Straight Story is also a very simple story. It's about a man who has to go see wants to go see his brother, who he's estranged from. He doesn't have a driver's license. He's not allowed to drive because he's an older man, and
Oh, right,
and so he drives his
he drives his tractor,
his mower,
yeah.
his tractor mower, hundreds of miles to get to see his brother. I mean, the whole construct of the story was a real story. It was a newspaper article that inspired him, but it was perfectly in keeping with the David Lynch that we all know. There was something a little bit off, a little bit bizarre, a little bit different and strange that he bought into.
He bought into it.
But the emotions of the character, all the way through are very real.
But I can see why that would inspire a guy like David Lynch, because when you think about old guy, emergency, needs to get somewhere, the one picture you see is just this old dude on a lawnmower
driving on
the highway. And I could see that turning into like, this is a cool image. We can do something with this. And by the way, that triggered another memory where I want to add some filmmaker to the list of our Tim Burton, David Lynch, and Wes Anderson. I think Coen brothers should fit in there too.
No question.
That's
no question.
The last piece. What triggered it was you saying David saw an article that inspired him to do that movie, and I think it was Ethan or Joel, whichever one. Coen. There's a movie with Billy Bob Thornton called The Man Who Wasn't There, or something like that, which was inspired. I think he was talking about seeing either a billboard or a poster hung up somewhere of a guy, and he just seemed like in his eyes, he's like, he's not there, but it's just this guy who goes about life and just is in this like trance of life, and so they made that film about it, and it's an obscure movie, but
think about it. But there again with the Coen brothers, their first movie was Blood Simple, and Blood Simple has all the elements that you find in almost every one of the Coen brothers movies.
It's
so
very
if you look at that movie, you can see a consistent. Only when you look back on it, you say, "Oh well, they already had an idea and they were doing that." You see the same thing in Wes Anderson. You see the same thing in David Lynch. You're exactly right. Those are consistencies that let you know of a film artist that has a vision and has an idea of something they want to do. There are a lot of other...
That's something that you don't know how to look for it, but when you see it, you...
Yeah. Well, think of... I mean, there are a lot of excellent filmmakers who've worked in multiple mediums, and they're very good at taking something from the page and putting it on film, but they don't have that element of stylistic consistency that the filmmakers we're talking about do. And that is, it's of a different order. Yeah. You're talking about something different than an interpreter who comes in, just like a great pianist who plays the same, sonata that somebody else plays. And, he can play it. It sounds good. It sounds,
the right notes.
And and unless he or she does something very specific that changes it in some way, you're just gonna hear that piece done. It could be slower or faster, but that's what you're hearing. It's an interpretation of someone else's creation. With and I think that's very much the same with some great filmmakers,
Agreed.
Some very good filmmakers who have been consistently turning out hit after hit, but there's nothing about one movie to the next that would say, "Oh, that's a Lynch movie. That's a Coen Brothers movie."
Because you can take the Wes Anderson composition, you can take the Lynchian character development and obscurity, and then you can take Tim Burton's prop design methods and whatnot, or you can do all that. But I think when you have somebody that's the artist and it's giving you the same kind of vibe overall, but there are these little surprises or things that kind of end up happening that are fresh in every movie in a way that it doesn't feel copied. Like I don't know how to describe it, but there's an originality to each piece in a way, but it's still following that voice.
Yeah, well, I'm not looking to cast shade on any artist in any form, but I mean, there are books like that too. I mean, if you look at certain books, you look at
This is just somebody trying to be
some writer
Stephen King, right?
Who you say, oh my God, Vonnegut. I know what I'm going to get. I don't know what I'm going to get, but everyone.
But
is
I know
gonna
I'll
be,
like it.
But I know it's going to be off. You know. On the other hand, a lot of books are just straight narrative. The storytelling is there. It's only about the story, not about the form so much. Okay,
it doesn't
that's
have
a different
that
style.
extra layer of whatever the hell that stuff is. It's kind of a magical thing.
Well, those are the things that we appreciate. I say we. I'm talking about film lovers appreciate a lot of that stuff, but very often that stuff isn't the thing that makes a movie the most financially successful.
Yeah,
I mean That's a different story.
That's a
very
totally
different story.
That's very true, and it's kind of a tricky thing. And I think that goes into any art form. There's the same predicament in the fine arts world, where you, as a fine artist, you develop a style, and you might start selling your paintings, and if they catch on, great. But then you kind of need to keep delivering that in a way it feels like, or
I often think about. Like Spielberg. People talk about Spielberg as being, he's the greatest filmmaker. Well, he's the most successful filmmaker probably of our time, for sure. Yeah. And almost every one of his films has been very successful, made tons of money. Yeah. He has caught something in the zeitgeist that people respond to. Mm-hmm. So even when he does a dark film, even when he does, a Holocaust film, for example, that tends to have a ceiling as to what people will take and how much they'll go see. They go see his film, and it makes a ton of money.
It's funny you bring him up, though, because he's a perfect example of somebody who I really admire and respect. Obviously, you can't not. Yeah. You can't say anything bad about his career. Mm-hmm. But he is the other side of what we're talking about, because you can watch 3 Spielberg films and you would have no clue they're Spielberg, because you could watch Indiana Jones and then you could watch Jaws and you can watch Schindler's List.
Yes.
And those movies have zero in common, other than they're just amazing films.
They're
just really well done.
High quality work. There's a very strong intelligence at work in making those movies. Yeah. But you're right. Stylistically, they're not the same.
Voice behind it. You're
There's not something you say, oh, that's, the only thing I could think of, and Spielberg may fall into that because he's great with, E.T. I mean, he's wonderful with kids. He's always done, the movies that he's done that have had young people in them have always been really smart and really done.
I think Cameron's has a bit of a similar thing. At Spielberg, I think the sauce there, if you think about the through line, there's always a very, very intimate relationship. Could be a father-daughter, could be a husband-wife, could be a child and an alien. And they're set in this enormous, exciting set and setting. Mm-hmm. And those two things combine, like a very, very intimate story, but in this big, big. Maybe. I mean,
I'd have to think about
that. It's the only thing I can think of that really happens in every film, because even War of the Worlds or whatever, that the Alien film or whatever, that was about really Tom Cruise and his daughter, and
it is about that relationship.
Yeah, so
and you have to buy into it. No, I mean,
I'm sure it's not every single movie. But
and maybe Spielberg isn't the best example of somebody who is, alternate from the mainstream. We're talking, but he is mainstream. He is definitely mainstream.
I'm not saying he's less creative. He's a very creative guy.
Well, I think. All right, look at Ron Howard. Okay. Ron Howard's made a lot of different movies, very successful movies, very different movies. Is there a style that
I couldn't say? Oh, that's Ron Howard.
Would you say Cocoon is the same guy who did? Apollo 13. I don't know. No. I'm not sure.
No, not at all. But if I sit down and watch a Coen Brothers film, I can say it is. Yeah. This pacing, this dialogue, this is Coen Brothers.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, one doesn't take away from the other. They're two different things. And I actually have to thank you, because this podcast and stuff has made me realize how little I watch films. And I actually have watched a lot of movies. There's just been a couple years recently where I just haven't been and been focusing on stuff. But about a week ago or two, I told myself I'm going to try to watch something every day, if not maybe every other day. So I've started catching up and watching.
Yeah, but
things.
I mean, we talked last week about Snow White. It's so interesting because I tried to go see it. First of all, it wasn't playing in a theater, and I didn't want to pay for it on television. And then I started reading all of the negativity about that movie, based on the fact that it was like the worst example of wokeness, of taking a story and trying to do everything you could to turn it into something that wouldn't work.
Right.
Because what was original was primal. There was a primal story there that they just took apart and then, put. I mean, as you noted last time, Snow White is a Latino girl. Whether you buy that or not, okay.
The dwarves are replaced.
The dwarves are replaced. They're not dwarves anymore. They're workers.
The prince is not a prince. He's the leader of some hooligan gang.
Yeah, I mean every aspect that could that the original story was taken out.
I got to tell you, man, I am gonna break my promise because I don't think I want to see that thing, and it's because it's pretty long, and I don't feel the need to anymore because I've just seen enough online that it's not just a rumor. We know it's got a 1.6 on IMDb. Yeah. It's bad. Yeah. And Disney really, really shit the bed on it. Yeah. And I never want to say that about anybody, but this was a colossal mistake. And if all you had to do, and I'm not Iger, but I can also look at Minecraft movie came out, which I did go see with my kids. It cost $100 million less to make, has the same amount of CGI in it, really. It's all Minecraft created world. Yeah. It has 2 major stars in it, Momoa and Jack Black. Right. Mm-hmm. And it already in its first weekend brought in more gross worldwide than Disney did in 3 weekends with Snow White.
What did you think of it?
I think they did the right thing with the film.
You saw?
I saw Minecraft.
That's what I'm saying. Yes. Okay.
I think it was. I went with all 4 of my kids.
Okay.
I went with 3 of my kids. The youngest one stayed home. They loved it. So here's the 3 things I think they did right.
Okay.
It's an hour and 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay.
I don't need a 2-hour Minecraft movie.
Yes,
it's
2 hours and a half.
Just over 90 minutes, and I got 3 kids. It's perfect. I don't have to take anyone to the bathroom. It's designed. The second thing they did right. It's made like what you want a good Nickelodeon movie to be, and I say Nickelodeon, not Disney, because it's a little edgier. It's not Disney magical, but it's for the kids, but it's entertaining for adults. Like there are the jokes in there that you'll get that go over their head.
Yeah, that's that.
Right, and the story's a little rough for somebody who knows what a good story is, but at least they put a story together. Minecraft is not a linear game. There's no story to the game. So
they had to create a story.
It's a builder game. So the idea of having a kid who is very smart in the real world and somehow there's 2 storylines really, so I won't get into it, but gets into this Minecraft world and through shenanigans and adventures discovers that he really can build what he wants out in the real world. And so there's a nice little moral thing for kids to be like, you don't have to be in a video game to build what you want in life. Mm-hmm. So I like that. Those are good messages. There's nothing being hammered onto your head with the Minecraft squares are round in this game because why would a square have to be square? Like there's no politics. Yeah. So I like that, but I think what I was kind of getting at with Disney was that the all they really had to do was, I think it started with a conversation, if I'm not mistaken, from my little grapevine conversations, that it was about trying to present Snow White in a way to empower young girls to understand that they don't have to be saved, they can empower themselves. And all you would really have to do if you wanted to do that is stick to the story, identical, but then the prince could just have say something or do something with her to help her realize, well, you didn't need me. You can, it's like, you know what? Yeah, maybe he encourages her to find that strength in herself, and she just, and then you could say, well, it's mansplaining. No, it's just somebody else telling you that you're worthy and you can do it on your own if you really want. If you want to put some kind of a little moral thing in there, but to change everything,
well,
bad.
Look,
I don't want to see it anymore.
Yeah,
If you're okay with it,
hear you.
this is fuck it.
I hear no. It's okay. I mean, I probably won't. I mean, I doubt if I'll see it soon.
Yeah.
But and there are movies. There are movies that have gotten. I mean, I feel bad. My friend Barry Levinson, who's a wonderful filmmaker, generally has made this movie Alto Nights, which is getting a lot of shade on it. It's got very bad reviews. It's a gangster movie. It seems like it. The gangster movie, at least in terms of the criticism, kind of indicates that they've jumped the shark. It's too late now. I mean, the story, we've heard the story a million times. That's one thing. The other thing is the key trick in the movie, which wasn't initially there, was the notion of having Robert De Niro play two different gangsters. And he plays both of them, and with makeup, and so he has to. So knowing that, I know I'm always going to be looking to see, how did he play against himself,
and it's
how
a
did
serious
they do that?
movie.
No, it's a serious. It's
See,
a gangster movie. Now I haven't seen the movie, but
I think you're
I will
asking-
see it.
Yeah,
I will see
and you know
it.
what? I'll
That I
watch
will
it with
see
you too.
because I want to know.
I think you're asking for trouble with something like that because it did work in the '90s with movies like that Eddie Murphy was doing, where he played all 7 characters, and it was like a funny
comedy.
thing. Well, that's what I mean. I think the minute you do something real, that you got to think like you did in The Elephant Man.
Yeah.
I don't want people looking for a famous actor in this character here.
Yeah.
That breaks it.
Well, I think it does,
Yeah.
and I think as soon as the technique becomes a trick,
It's a gimmick.
it takes.
Almost.
It's a gimmick. It is a gimmick, and it takes. I think, as someone must have thought it was a very clever idea, and let's use the best guy who can play anything to play two different guys. But I'm not sure that was the best idea.
It's the
in
difference.
world.
Okay, so there was a thing I saw online which was great, and I think that's the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, not a vegetable. Wisdom is not putting a tomato in your fruit salad. Right? So,
I like that.
yeah.
I like that.
It's like, just because you can... Yeah, you're right. That'd be interesting. But no, it's not going to work. Why? I can't tell you technically why, but it won't work. It won't land.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
I think on paper, a lot of things sound
Sound
intriguing.
like it's a clever idea.
And it goes the other way. I shit on French movies and Italian.
yeah.
I was like, what I said about Honora. I was like, it's the kind of,
You felt it was a very foreign movie?
it was like the kind of thing that a French Canadian would like expletive deleted over, right? And I threw that out there. I know it's not the nicest way to talk about things, but I didn't say it was a bad movie. It was just like, not my style. I don't like these sort of slice of life, here's reality bullshit. But then I watched a movie called The 400 Blows.
Great movie.
And I wanted to thank you because the only reason I ever watch movies that I would never watch is because we're doing this, and I was
I'm
like,
going to force you to see other movies. If you
do it. No,
because The 400 Blows is a classic. And
it's
worth
great.
seeing.
And I was like, I don't know why this is.
Well, I do. I mean, also, the kid.
It's
Antoine Duanel.
He's amazing.
You want to watch this kid every second. He is so good.
I know, but I'm thinking, like I was talking about in the Honora episode, it's like, I need it elevated. Come on, it's the movie. Like, make shit happen. Put some danger in there. And so in the 400 Blows, I'm like, it's going to be this like drag-on French film where it's just like a slow burn that leads to nothing. And in a way it was, but it wasn't, because it was so relatable. And it wasn't about some kid who gets into gangs. It was just a regular kid in Paris dealing with the things that you deal with. And unfortunately then getting, put into a home. And it was just so good. And at the end, the thing on the beach with typical art film ending, which I hate normally, a freeze frame on this kid's face on the beach. But after that, I'm thinking to myself, I want to find something to hate. I can't. I actually love the whole thing. And again, thank you, because I would have never watched Francis, Without Limits, Cabrini.
Yeah,
I would have never watched.
That. Well, you should see La Strada if you get a chance. The early Fellini, because
I will.
It's not unlike the 400 Blows in some ways, but I mean it's about a waif working in a carnival, and it just is it's magical. I think there's certain of these movies.
Can you make a movie like that anymore? I mean, if you finance it yourself, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, I think you can, and I think occasionally a movie like that will catch fire. You don't know. I mean, look, you may not have respected or thought that Anora was that good a movie, but clearly it was a simple movie, simple story, very, very simple. Yeah. And again, to my mind, I thought that girl was really worth watching. I wanted to watch her. I was interested in her. I was interested in her. It was only her. I was following her. I didn't care about anybody else, really. I mean, I thought, is she going to get hurt? Are they going to beat her up? Are they going to hurt? I mean, but it wasn't in the sense that I cared about it in the way that I would care about it in a movie about, are they going to kill her? I mean, it wasn't that kind of story. But, I look, I'm not saying it's one of the great movies of our time. I don't think it is. I think it's a reasonably, it's a good movie. And the awards don't mean anything to me in that respect, because that's that's something else.
Yeah,
but
that's different. But I think in that respect, if I'm thinking back now after seeing 400 Blows and kind of going down this rabbit hole, I feel like I still kind of am where I'm at with Anora, because not because of her, the execution and the script itself, I think, fell in between. I think they could have either played it down even more and just made it even simpler, and it's about this sex worker or stripper or whatever who this guy comes in, and kind of like 400 Blows, it's just kind of like a situational thing, and it's just a little more subtle. Or then they take it to the top. But it's like, what bothered me is that they do have this like Russian billionaire family thing going on, and they have these Armenian or whatever like henchmen that come in, and there is this fight, and he breaks his nose, and they are trying to kind of go there, but then it doesn't go to the level that I want it to go. Like, it's kind of absurd in some ways, but not, all right, let's go for it then. And then they're just driving around for the entire second act, and it's all kind of over. Yeah. And but then just go down to do 400 Blows then, and just make it more gritty. But anyway, that's just me. Again, I don't disrespect people.
I'm
not a film critic, and I don't like film critics. But in a way, I do criticize films in a way. Just everybody listening, keep in mind, this is my opinion. I'm not saying anything about. I mean, Snow White might be a phenomenal film. Those 20 people that actually went to see it might have loved it, but
maybe
chances are lower.
Maybe not too high.
Yeah. All right. Are we up?
I think we are. I think we're about done.
Okay. Thanks.
Al.
Well, more to come.
See you next time.
A Fellini movie, maybe?
Yeah, could it be something?